Welcome our live streaming friends who are watching tonight. We are here in the sanctuary at House of Prayer Lutheran Church. I'm the pastor here at House of Prayer and for Faith in Van Kirk and Rehoboth Lutheran Churches. My name is Mike Sauerwein, and to my left is...
I'm Ben Brosha, the music director here at House of Prayer.
Awesome. And so we're the in front of the camera people. I was going to say talent, but I don't think that's the right word, just people. We're the in front of the camera people.
Just one side of the glass.
One side of the glass. Behind, on the other side of the glass, is our AV extraordinaire person, Joe Patz. You have the Joe Cam, right?
Yeah, it's Joe Cam. Joe Cam. That's exactly where we wanted the logo.
Yep.
That was perfect.
Thank you for that advertising moment. And so Joe's behind the camera, or so, I guess I should watch saying behind the camera because he's not really behind the camera anymore.
No, he's in front of
He's in front of a different camera.
Yes.
I'm at home watching Emily and Chris Dazen, and Emily's the one replying to all your comments online on Facebook here. This is interactive, and so we want you to interact and be part of the conversation. Like I said, Emily will be replying to you from the church's account. I'm watching all your comments. Ben, you don't have the comments in front of you.
I don't today. I'm relying on y'all to.
We got you.
To clue me in on what's happening.
We got you.
Thank you.
And so a couple of things you can reply back to specifically. You just say hi to each other. That's awesome. Denise says, I think that was you. Yeah. I see Barb Oman here. Good. Glad to be here. Blessings and peace. My mom. I think I saw Ben's mom on there.
Hello,
Nancy Minor says hello to everyone. Paulette says good evening to everyone. Chris Malloy says prayers for our prayers for pastors are certainly appreciated very much.
We're on top of it today.
People
know exactly what's going on.
They know the drill. This is 9 weeks in. Can you believe we've been doing this thing for 9 weeks?
Isn't that like a semester for students?
Hey,
like
a little bit short. I thought it was like 15 weeks for a semester.
Oh, maybe, I don't know.
I just wanted to let everybody know that, yes, I do know there's something wrong with Mike's mic, and I am taking care of it behind the scenes. So he'll just keep on talking, but we'll try and get along as best as we can.
And now that magic.
Now that I've got my mic plugged into the right plug, we're doing a lot better. I was told that my mic wasn't on, so we're getting it.
Your mic wasn't on.
My mic was not on. Your mic is on, but there's some issues with it. But it sounds like it's cleared itself up, so we should.
I'm perfect. Thank you for asking. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.
My mic has had issues the last couple live streams we've done, mainly because I sit on the microphone. I put it in my back pocket, and then sometimes I sit on the cable, and it does crazy things. So now you can see people at home. I have it gently sitting beside me here. I'm very delicately trying to maneuver around without touching it, so it is perfect for you all.
Basically, we want you to know at home that we are just people too, just like you.
That's the fun of doing live streams too. You never know how things are going to go. All right, so I'm just going to throw out the topic before we go any farther, and we'll do a couple more announcements here. But we're talking about anxiety tonight, and when I say that, as one who has struggled with anxiety in my past, when I was in high anxiety times in my life, and I heard someone else say we're going to talk about anxiety, that immediately made my anxiety go even higher.
Word, yeah.
And so if you're in that place right now, just first of all know that that's normal. But second of all, know that this is not going to be a conversation that is meant to spur up anyone's anxiety. I very much intend for tonight to be something that actually helps lower people's anxiety. That's the whole goal. That's why we picked this topic, because we know a lot of us are feeling anxious right now. We just want to have some space to talk about that. And then really importantly at the end, we want to talk about some things we can do to sort of push back against our anxiety.
Absolutely.
So I just want to get that out early here before we went any farther, just so that no one jumped off the feed expecting it to be scary or bad. Because I've been there. I know when people talk about anxiety, I knew what my triggers were, and I would shy away. So, and this is good. I hope a good conversation for children too. My 11-year-old, he struggles with anxiety. Amazing that at 11-year-old he's already named that in his life. And I would hope that this would be a conversation that he would enjoy, and he would be able to walk away at the end and say, "Oh, okay, I feel better. I feel equipped now. I feel better to deal with the world right now." So we're gonna get to that in a moment. Just a few more announcements, just to say, please comment right back to me here. You all can see me and Ben and on the Joe Cam too, but we can't see you. And so we know that you're involved and part of this conversation by the things you write here. And so I really appreciate if you write things there. And like I said, I'm watching. I've already seen some folks checking in. I see prayer requests. If you offer prayer requests, we'll pray for those later. We finish this time with a bit of contemplation and prayer. we'll name those and pray at a later point. Just love to have you participating. I do want to mark this space off from the rest of the spaces in your life. When this all began, we were using Wednesday nights to do Holden Evening Prayer, which is very much a very worshipful feeling place. This isn't quite that same thing, but I think this is still like a worshipful moment, a chance to sort of bare ourselves and talk about where God is in the world, even in the midst of things like anxiety. And then we spend time praying for people and letting God speak back to us. And we finish with the Lord's Prayer. So I think it's faithful to call this a worshipful sort of moment for now.
Absolutely.
Hey, we've lit candles in the background here. I did actually remember today to light the candles as opposed to my faux pas on Sunday. They're lit. We have some of our icons.
Lit. I don't know what you're talking about.
I know. We even have some of our icons out, which work well for this evening sort of vibe. We got we got the Jesus one behind my shoulders here, and behind Ben is the picture of Mary holding the little infant Jesus. Icons can be really special for people.
I like that one. That one's I'm good. I'm happy that one's on my side.
You get that one for tonight.
I get that one.
I love this big Jesus one that Ingrid got for us. My favorite is actually sitting over there. I don't have it out for tonight, but it's a picture of the Trinity. But I will have it out on Sunday, I think, because I would like to talk about the Trinity a little bit on Sunday.
Cool.
But icons are cool. I didn't grow up with icons, but I really come to appreciate them in life. All right, so I think that said, let's jump into our topic a little bit here of anxiety. So it's funny when you have actually struggled with anxiety in your life, you see like words and lines and sentences about anxiety that you never saw before. Like, I'm not a big Bible quoter in my life, but a lot of people know Philippians 4, verse 4. I mean, that's the verse that says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice." There's even songs about that, little fun kids songs. But then it continues on, which I never really noticed. I know I've read this a number of times because I use another phrase from here often. So the whole verse 4, Philippians 4, moving on from verse 4, says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Your kindness should be known to all. The Lord is near." And then it says, "Have no anxiety at all, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, make your needs known to God. And the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." I've never noticed the word anxiety popping up in those words before.
I was about to say, I don't know if I've heard. That may be one of the first times I've heard anxiety in a Bible verse.
Could be a translation thing with this one. I mean, I use this for devotions in the past week here, but it might say something like "have no fear at all" or something along those lines.
Sure.
But I think it's also just the in tune nature we have when we've struggled with anxiety.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's be honest, right now is an anxious time in the world.
Oh, it's a prime environment for anxiety to run rampant.
And through no fault of our own. I mean, so I actually think we're all struggling with anxiety right now, but some of us may be more aware of that than others. And if you are a person, all right, should I tell the story now?
Yeah, I think it's time.
A couple weeks ago, Joe came into night church, and I said something about anxiety after we had been in here for a few moments. And I said, yeah, there's just so much anxiety in the world. We're all sort of struggling with that. Ben agreed, and Joe's like, I'm not dealing with that anxiety. And when Joe came in, he came in like in a rage of anger because people were walking on his street on various sides of the road. Like, they were trying to be socially apart from one another or physically apart. So one was walking on one side, the other was on the other side of the road, walking down the street together. And he was enraged about this reality.
In my defense, they were walking in the same direction, and it was scary having to drive through the middle of them because they weren't leaving the street. They were staying right on the edge of the street, and there's not a lot of room on my street. So it was scary, and it just, my anxiety went through the roof that day. That was the day that COVID broke Joe.
COVID broke Joe.
You talked like it's only been one time, Joe. COVID has broke Joe. I mean, so I think that's a real thing. Like we have lots of those. I mean, sometimes it's anger. That's very much a symptom of anxiety. But man, I've seen all kinds of. I feel myself all kinds of symptoms of anxiety. You Ben? I mean, have you?
I do, and I'm one of the victims that doesn't admit it.
Does not admit it.
Or does not admit it. Not to others, but not even to myself too. I always tend to. I think I never believed that anxiety was the thing, was what was causing issues. I just was like, I don't know what this is. This is something completely different. I don't have anxiety.
We justify it away, too.
That's not who I am.
Like Joe even still wanted to justify it a little way. Like, well, they're walking, they shouldn't have been walking like that, right? They should have been walking the same side of the street. It was hard for me to drive my car down the right?
Yeah. No, it's an interesting word because it's different for everybody.
It
and
is.
it's
Yes.
hard to describe it too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What makes it hard for people to recognize, am I anxious? You know, maybe they just feel mad or,
Well,
or maybe,
so
yeah.
that's a good segue. We have a quick shot here. Joe, throw this up on the screen. Um, Denise writes, "Oh, COVID broke Joe."
It's okay. I'm not totally broken.
I want a T-shirt that says that.
So this image, I think it's on the screen now. It just says anxiety might look like. And there's a number of different like little pictures and words there. Irritability. I mean, I wonder if we even think that some of these things would be symptoms or like repercussions of our anxiety, like being really irritable. Maybe, I mean, I find myself being irritable at home, especially with my stupid kids, right? Or maybe when people are walking on the wrong sides of the road and you're driving your car through
Right.
very irritable or angry, right?
Yes.
Obsessive behaviors is the second one there on the top there. Over-scheduling and overworking. I think the opposite also happens too, where we just avoid and we sort of clam up and don't do anything.
Sure.
As part of a symptom of anxiety. Overindulgence, right? I was doing really good on my diet, and now I find myself eating and drinking every single night at like 10
I was
o'clock.
about to say the big one. I know people's like drinking alcohol. Like, more so, like why not? You know, take the medicine down. You know.
This is a real, in anxious moments, it's very easy to, especially things like alcohol, that can, a couple beers takes the thing off, right? Or a shot of Jim Beam takes that real heavy anxiety off. You can sort of live with yourself again. A couple others on here: dizziness and numbness, sleepiness, insomnia. There at the bottom.
That one's mine.
That's you.
Last night I was up till 6 a.m.
So you can't sleep, but then you have a hard time waking up. And then once you fall asleep, you have a hard time waking up, or just can't sleep.
It depends. Some days I'll go to sleep at 9. Some days I'll stay up all night till I see the sun, or some days I'll stay up till late hours, and I'm just doing whatever, playing something on the piano, or hanging out, or talking to people, or just sitting. I don't know. Can't go to sleep.
I bet that's really common. I bet that's really common for a lot of people. For me, I find I learned this a number of years ago, but whenever I have a hard time waking up in the morning or like dragging myself out of bed, like those who know me know I'm not exactly Mr. Morning person to begin with.
Sure.
But I really struggle. When there's a lot of stress or anxiety in my life, I can really feel it in the morning. I know that, like, even without doing a self-awareness sort of thing, I know that I'm anxious because I can't get up as easily in the morning. The last two on here: lack of concentration, and then avoidance. Lack of concentration. I remember early on when this all began, a couple of my colleagues saying that with the free time they're going to dig into some big readings, but they found that they couldn't concentrate on like digging into those things.
Same.
Yeah, right. Or if you want to do a big project and write some new music or something.
Stop. I didn't like that picture. That was too close to home.
Well, I mean, so the reason why I say these things is because, I mean, on one hand, I hope that a lot of us those are resounding for us. Like, we're saying, that's the thing. And like, so I railed off my kid earlier today. I'm not just a bad person. I'm dealing with anxiety, right? And that explains away why we're doing some of the things we're doing. And I hope it also can normalize a little bit and say, oh, well, then that's pretty normal for the place we're in right now. Like, that I'm having a hard time sleeping and staying up to all hours maybe isn't the healthiest thing I could do right now, but it's just a symptom of the anxiety that we're all dealing with right now. And
what do you suggest someone does, though, once they get to that point? The point after that point where they acknowledge, okay, it's just anxiety, and maybe they still feel that anxious feeling. Like, what would you suggest? What do you do once you get past that point?
Yeah. Let's come back to that. I want to talk about a few of them. I do want to. I mean, I think that's a constant question to be asking in all these. Okay, you nailed me. I can't sleep. Now what do I do? Right.
Right.
Yes, I about threw my child through the window today. Now what do I do to not throw them through the window tomorrow? Right. A couple of these others I found really interesting. The one about irrational fears, was that the way it worded on there? Obsessive behaviors. It had a picture of a keyboard there. I think that is just one I see so much. I see conspiracy theory people like all over the place right now, and on every end of the spectrum. And I think an answer to what do we do now? We'll sort of step back and say, why am I drawn to this behavior? Why am I so angry at someone down the road, or why am I drawn to this sort of way of thinking online when I'm not normally? It's because usually when we feel really anxious, it just throws us completely out of control. We want answers. We want places to grab onto. We want places to make us feel like we've got firm footing in the world, like we've got grounding again. And so it can be the strangest things that attract us to that place. I know, again, in my anxieties, my real anxious times, especially with this like sort of the clinical anxiety where you're heart beating, can't catch your breath, almost panic attack sort of anxiety. I'm really drawn to any sort of crazy reality as long as it will calm my anxiety down, right? Whether it's true or not, I just want this to be true so it calms me down,
Right.
irrational or not. That one really jumped out at me as I think about the world. I think about people around the church right now. Just that one's a one I really feel with people right now.
It's very prevalent, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help the situation at all, too, because there is that fake reality that you want to create to help. That help your situation could somehow spread to someone else that misinforms them. And then creates maybe they create an anxiety from your fake reality that makes you feel better.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, and anxiety is contagious. I mean, not like in a COVID sort of way, but our anxiety. If we are struggling with anxiety, other anxious people can then amp that up. And
Sure.
I mean, for those of us who have struggled with anxiety, we know that to be true pretty well. Actually, let's go to your question about like what can we do?
Sure.
The one, especially for things like that. In my really anxious moments where I've been struggling, like 4 or 5 years ago, I had this moment where I was convinced Ebola was going to kill us all. Like we were all gonna die.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I had this this crazy conspiracy theory so concocted in my head that I was like buying tenting equipment off of REI in my head. Stacey wouldn't let me actually pull the trigger, but I was like planning to move out to Raccoon Township somewhere in the middle of the woods on some of my bike paths that I'd gone on where I knew no one else would be, and we would like tent there for a month or two until everyone else died of Ebola, and we could reemerge back into society after everyone had died and it was gone.
That's reasonable.
So you're
Totally reasonable, right?
you're kind of like some crazy biker prepper thing.
Yeah, right. Yes. I mean, everything about that, in hindsight, when I'm not feeling super anxious, it's like, I can't believe I thought that way. But in the middle of it, you can't see any other way out of it. It's just totally encompassing. And so, an answer is, one of the best things I did was had the guts to tell Stacey that I felt like that. Or tell other people. Like I told our bishop that I was like really messed up and afraid of stuff.
Yeah.
I went to a therapist, a counselor, which was life-saving. But trusting people with this anxiety was number one, a huge thing, especially safe people. People that weren't feeling the same anxiety as me and that could hold that. I think that's one of the most important things anyone can ever do.
Yeah, that
when you're
trust
anxious.
part is tough.
And there are a lot of trustworthy people out there. And these trustworthy people aren't people that agree with your stuff, right? Like I needed Stacey to say, "Here's where you're crazy is all wrong."
Sure.
Right? And then I trusted her in that place. So I think that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I would say. Other pieces of advice are just there's lots of healthy behaviors you can do. I mean, as you noticed when we went through the list there's all sort of unhealthy behaviors like overeating, drinking, just sitting around and not doing anything, not being, and to some degree, those are coping mechanisms. We just sort of live into them just to get through the moments, and they're okay. If they become long, sort of drawn out things, that's where we can get ourselves into trouble.
Sure.
And so the healthy things to do in anxiety and with moments like that is sort of the opposite of those. Eat healthy, right? So as much as my dinner tonight has been a Pop-Tart.
Pop-Tarts.
Yeah,
Probably
that's
not,
healthy.
Yeah, right.
Right?
I'm crushing it personally, right? I'm
Yeah.
nailing this tonight. I've got all this anxiety stuff together. I had a Pop-Tart for dinner tonight. I'm nailing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Less caffeine. I know for myself, caffeine's a killer for me and my mental health. Like that one. I've actually, and Joe knows, he knows how healthy I am when we go to breakfast at normal times, and I have regular coffee or decaf coffee. Decaf is a major one for me though now.
Yeah.
Caffeine's a good one. Again, alcohol. Alcohol continues to exacerbate anxiety. I feel like someone's giving us. Oh, Barbara Ohm writes on here: deep breathing exercises. That's why actually smoking can be helpful for people.
Yes.
Smoking isn't good. Let me just say that really clearly.
What?
The nicotine, the whole thing is really bad. But what is really amazing about smoking is going out and breathing deeply for 5 minutes.
Yes.
Right? That's the real meditative thing about that.
To be fair, whenever I quit smoking many years ago, I used to go out with the rest of the guys to have a smoke, but I would just go out just to breathe deeply. And that was something that actually one of the doctors in the Navy taught me whenever I was trying to quit.
Yeah, right?
Interesting. I never knew that. I never would have thought of it.
Barb wrote a couple other really good things on here too.
No, don't start smoking.
Just pretend like you're smoking without a cigarette and breathe
Yeah.
deeply for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Get a carrot.
Get a carrot.
Just go outside and breathe deeply.
Yeah.
And so Barb says particularly outdoors and fresh air sort of things, exercise, things like that, works for her. And the couple of things I wrote down. So exercise is really key, and this is actually science. I mean, so our brains fire. I think it's endorphins when we exercise.
Right.
And endorphins are really good for fighting away the chemical imbalance that causes anxiety. So exercising is incredible for anxiety. I know. So that fall that I really hit the wall and was all anxious about stuff. I biked more miles that fall than I ever did any other year, and that was really life-saving for me. That was incredible. I'm gonna look at a couple comments on here because I saw someone else. Chris writes just very irritable by seeing things on social media, and so I feel the same way actually, Chris. I get irritated too, and so when I start getting frustrated with the things I see on social media, I stop and ask myself where is my irritability coming from? Because we want to blame other people, which is another part of anxiety, is to blame other people for the thing. But really, it's a question of where is my irritability coming from? What am I anxious about? And trying to dig into that a little bit.
Sure.
And it's a total game changer. Because I'll say for myself, when I get irritable at people online, it's because I want them to know my way of things, which is the right way, right? My way is the right way.
Absolutely.
I want my
Well, actually, it's my
control.
way is the right way.
Well, as long as we're on the same page, that's the right way.
Yeah.
And so people who on Facebook don't post the way that I think they should post. And so really it's about my irritability comes from my lack of control, right?
Yeah.
Pastor Angela wrote on here, there's a difference between having anxiety for a situation, but an anxiety that's persistent and needs attention. Yeah, I think that's true. And although I don't think the line's very clear, and if I'm wrong about this, Pastor Angela will let me know tomorrow in our cluster meeting. It'd be interesting to talk that out a little more. Although I think a lot of the symptoms are the same for anxiety that is chronic and ongoing and those that pop up in moments like this. But there is a distinction, and there are certainly levels of anxiety that breathing a whole lot is not going to get you through. Sure. That's why there's therapists and counselors out there to go to. And again, I went to one, and it was an incredible gift to my life, and still is. So yeah, I see those comments on here. Thank you for those comments, people, friends. That's really good. And the last thing I would say, on my list here of ways in which we can sort of deal with our anxiety in healthy ways, is by praying, meditating. I've found that it still is one of the foundational best practices in my whole arsenal of dealing with my anxiety, of going into a time of especially listening and just laying it out to God and saying, here's how I'm feeling right now. Help me process this. Help me to figure out where you are in the middle of this, and help me just be okay in this moment. Yeah. When it doesn't feel very okay. Mm-hmm. I think that's and
I like showers.
Yeah.
Showers are very meditational to me. I don't know why.
Cool. Yeah.
Warm water, and you just sit there and.
Well, that's good. Meditation doesn't need to be like in a room where you're chanting Om to the universe, right?
Like I'm normally doing. Yes.
Well, I mean, so fascinatingly though, I one of the great, and this is a science sort of thing too, that one of the great foundational ways of dealing with anxiety is by meditating, by praying. And this is a foundational part of almost every single world religion, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Buddhist, Muslim, Christian, some sort of level of silence, prayer, meditation is foundational to almost every world religion.
It almost seems like, because that's the closest thing that can get you to kind of that nether world. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. Not nether world, but let me rephrase it. Like the other world that is the divine world, that, heaven or hell or just the other part of life that connects us all together in the universe.
Something larger than just our individuality.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's very much the case. And even, especially if you invite into that space sort of a sense of reflection on yourself in a much larger context. Again, back to the irritability thing. I go into prayer, when I find myself frustrated with the same thing, Chris, I go home and I go into my silent sort of time and say, God, why am I so irritable? Where is this really coming from? Help me connect this to a larger picture than rather just my own, I want to yell at you on Facebook.
Yeah.
But that doesn't solve anything.
Sure.
Wait, yelling at Facebook doesn't solve anything?
Now you can go Facebook Live. So.
Some would argue that it gets me I rage out for a moment, and then I feel better, and it's sort of therapeutic in and of itself. But if you're the type that wants to flip the other person to your perspective, I'm not sure that you're going to really achieve your goal there on Facebook.
Yeah.
If you're going to win over people to your perspectives, Facebook probably is not the place where you're going to get a bunch of followers.
99% of the time, too, people aren't going to want to be won over.
Right.
With those conversations.
Yeah, they posted it in the first place to try to win you over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. People like to fight.
Right?
Yes.
So I see here Pat wrote, sometimes I tell my sister I'm disgust, and she says to me, don't say that, just pray. I like that. That's a really good piece of advice there, rather than
Shut up and pray.
just shut up and pray tonight.
Yeah.
My kids are always singing
Make a
that.
song there.
Barb here says, thanks. Barb says, turn off the news, listen to soothing music. Amen to that one.
Amen.
Yes.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
We should do that, actually, right now in a moment. I see one more comment here. Ron says, I find prayer as well as meditation help, as well as having the faith in my family to listen and help me cope as I do for them. God bless you for having families, for those of us who have families that can be that sounding board and that safe space. And if you, that's awesome. I
Especially
think
still during when we're cooped up with your family. When people are probably cooped up with their family and just need some space, or may need some space, or just there's tensions, because you're all in that room building together.
yes, it
Did that
can be
make
really
sense?
that could add to your irritability, right?
Yeah.
You live by. I mean, you're by yourself right now, but having other people in my
you
room.
think that, but my brain, I live with 8 other people.
Was there imaginary people on that slide again? I saw obsessive behaviors, delusional thinking. I didn't see delusional thinking on there.
No.
Well, so we as part of our conversation here every time. I mean, this is not. I mean, our topics are never exhaustive conversations on these things. I mean, we could probably talk about anxiety for much longer, but I would like to turn our time now to thinking about praying a little bit, and I'm going to transition that using sort of this a moment in the scriptures when Jesus finds himself in anxious moments. And to be clear, Jesus finds himself in anxious moments regularly, and often they're not his own doing. Like I thought of one story earlier today where there's a big group of people that are all angry and they're ready to stone a woman for adultery, and he walks in as this non-anxious sort of presence, right? And he flips the switch pretty much on the situation. But the situation, the moment I do want to talk about is like the Garden of Gethsemane, the end of Jesus' life. He knows, I think, or at least he has pretty strong suspicions that his life is in danger. He's probably going to die in the next day or two. And so he has this moment where he just goes to the garden and just prays and just asks God for help. And I think that's a really great lens. I mean, Jesus is God, right? I mean, that's what we would sort of profess and confess as faith people. And yet, even in Jesus, we see the humanity, the heartbroken, the anxiety. I mean, that sounds like anxiety in Jesus right there in that moment. And again, I think if Jesus could be anxious, there's space for us to be anxious too. Pastor Angela says that delusional thinking is a different diagnosis.
Interesting.
Maybe that'll be the conversation for next week.
Yeah.
Ben and his house of imaginary people.
My house of imaginary friends.
So with our anxiety tonight, I think we're going to try and follow the path of Jesus here in Gethsemane and ask some questions and let it just sort of sit in silence with God in that anxiety. And so, Ben, if you would mind playing some music, I'm going to look at our text here that we've gotten and pray for those who have lifted up prayer requests. We try to start our time here by just by naming the prayers that you want to name. I mean, that's how we're going to hold community here. And so, I see prayers here from Pat Maceo, prayers for Nikki, for Tim, and for our loving world. I like that loving world. Let's see if I see any other comments here. I'll offer up a couple prayers here. Just, I think I saw a prayer for pastors. That one stuck with me because it resonated well. In our community here, I think about all the folks at Brighton Rehab that have died there, and the virus has really run rampant there. It's been a terrible situation, and so that one's been heavy on my heart. Big prayers for all the people there. I see prayers here for Ed Laughlin. This is from Chris, and for his Aunt Connie, and for all of his coworkers who are still not working. I know there's lots of anxiety about the economy and about our culture and people working or not working around us. And I know that anxiety then leads to blame and yelling at certain people, and it's their fault for not dealing with something. And so we're going to lift it up in prayer and stop and look at our own inclination to get mad or angry about those things. I see here from Pert prayers for all family and for all friends. So we lift up those prayers too. So right now we're going to pray without using any more words. And I think I want this time of prayer to just sort of reflect on, as we went through that list of all the sort of aspects of anxiety, maybe one or two jumped out at you. And if that was the case for you, I invite you just to think about why that was. What resonated with you. If it was maybe anger at someone, maybe angry at the government or angry at the governor for shutting down things, or angry at whomever, or just your draw to being irritable with your kids or your family or whatever the thing is. I invite us now to stop ourselves and just be quiet for a little bit and ponder where that comes from. What is it in us that is anxious? What in us is so upset and off kilter and uncentered that we'd act like that? And again, right now is a really normal time to be off center, off kilter, and out of control. And so none of this is abnormal. We should all feel very comfortable in the way we're feeling. But let's take a moment now to reflect on where we are. And so as we do this, I invite you to close your eyes and to take, as Barb mentioned earlier, take deep breaths, preferably without a cigarette in your hand. Just deep breaths in and out. And every breath in is an opportunity to take in freshness, newness, God's love, God's compassion. And every exhalation, every breath out is a chance to let go of that stuff. To let go of our anxiety, to let go of our irritability, to let go of our anger, our fear, our frustration, our shortness of breath, our out of control feelings, our sadnesses, our lamentation. We let go. We breathe in newness and God's love, and we let go of that which is harming us. And give space in these moments, and we'll watch the time here. Give space in these moments to name your struggle. Name it before God and allow it to go from you. And ask God where that is coming from for yourself. And then let God's love abide with you in that moment. We'll watch the time. our liturgy is a liturgy that is often repetitive, and we say a lot of the same things every time we gather. And I think that can be an amazing gift for anxiety. The stillness, the sameness, the repetition of those words, they sort of eke into our very soul. One of those repetitious parts of our liturgy is the Lord's Prayer. And I know in my moments of anxiety, the Lord's Prayer has been an incredible gift to me. And we're going to say the Lord's Prayer together right now. And let me point out that one of the beautiful things about the Lord's Prayer is that the responsibility of action sits solely on God. It's God whose kingdom comes. It's God who gives daily bread, who forgives sin, who protects us in times of trial and evil. To pray the Lord's Prayer is a prayer of giving in and surrendering to God, a God who is generous and loving and good. And so if you know this prayer, I invite you to join with me in saying it. And if you don't, you are more than welcome just to meditate through these ancient words shared by Jesus. So together, God's faithful people pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Friends, it is an anxious world that we are in right now. We are finding out, probably more than we ever have in our lives, whether we're 100 years old or whether we're just children, that we don't have as much control as we thought. We probably never had that much control. Control is always a delusion, but now it's really hitting home. We're grieving, we're hurting, and so we're anxious, because that's what happens in those sort of moments. And if you are feeling anxious, if you notice, as we talked through some of the parts of anxiety, that was you, you're okay. And this is an appropriate moment in the world and in our lives to feel those ways. Know that you're not alone. And know that there are people that you can go to. If you need to process your anxiety with someone, and you don't have a family member or another safe person in your life, reach out to me. I'll care for you. I'll do my best. And if your anxiety is super high, that's okay too. There are amazing professionals out there that can care for people. And we can make references to those kind of folks too. There's great counseling services in our neighborhood here in Aliquippa, or probably wherever you are, because I know people watch from long distances. But the thing I'd most encourage you to know tonight, amidst all the uncertainty and anxiety of the world in which we live in, know that we have a God that is right there in the middle of it. We shared a story where God came to earth and found himself right in the middle of that anxiety as he thought about his own death. And so God knows what it is to be anxious. God has been in the heart of this level of anxiety, and God continues to love in the midst of all of it. God loves you. Know that you are loved in this moment. And God's love is all around you, in people, in things, in places. I pray that you keep your eyes open to those moments. So we always finish our time of worship here, and this is one of those times too, with sharing of peace. And sometimes I like to say that the peace that we say here is like this, it's not sort of just like, hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Talk to you later. But rather, this is a sort of peace that's big, it's all-encompassing. It's a sort of, like the Hebrew scriptures use the word shalom. And shalom is like this overwhelming God making things right with the world sort of peace. That's the sort of peace that we're offering each other right now. And so when I say peace be with you, friends at home, the sort of peace I'm offering to you is the sort of peace where God really does desire to make things right in your life. A God who is right with you in that peaceful place as much as God can be. So friends, I finish by saying the peace of the Lord be with you all. And now we go and share that peace with everyone we can in as many ways as we can given our limitations right now. And we know that it's enough. Thank you for being with us.